is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I'm going to bring her up in a second, but my team always wants me to bring this up at the beginning of the show as well, because I usually forget and bring it up at the end. If you get value in what you hear today and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling really ambitious after this one, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, your network's going to see it as well. And then just another quick reminder, we did drop our weekly newsletter this morning. If you want to sign up for it, though, I need you to go to thefreightcoach.com, just because I don't auto-sign my contact list up for it. And if you want it, drops every Wednesday. If you don't, no worries at all. We're going to continue to put it out there. But we're today, my guest, we're going to talk about technology deployment. Like how do we actually roll out a lot of what's coming out there? How do you manage a lot of this as well? So I have Beth Young with Velocity on the show today. So Beth, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Well, absolutely. It's always good to see you. I like your energy, and this is a great way for me to start my day.
Hey, let's go. And Beth, it's been, I think, like 4 years since we saw each other last. We saw each other at the Minnesota Trucking Association the last time. And, you know, you've since changed roles and everything. But I want to kick the show off by, like, how'd you get your start in transportation? Like, what brought you into the industry?
Oh, it's such a good question, Chris. And yeah, great to see you again. It's been a while since we were up there hanging out in Minnesota with everyone, kind of back to our roots as well in that area. But how I got started in transportation kind of took its own little kind of weaving, meandering path. I came out of the dirty world of healthcare administration, and I was getting a little burnt down and or beat down, a little burnt out in that, just because of regulation that was affecting what someone could really do inside of healthcare. And so I was looking at like kind of who's doing what and who can still start a business as an individual. And it was trucking and transportation that like really rose to the top. And so I was like, okay, this is the place I want to be in. I pursue an industry change in that space, go into like some education, work for American Trucking Associations for a while, and then end up over at Velocity. But what I wish I would have known when I was getting ready to start college 20 years ago was how much possibility and potential exists in this industry. I just didn't know.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like I think a lot of individuals think they're like, oh, transportation, so I got to either work in a warehouse or drive a truck or anything like that. And I mean, 20 years ago when we were out in the about to explore into the real world, that's kind of like all that there was, right? And with like fast forward in this time frame, I feel like there's so many different sectors that have emerged and are emerging out there for people to really take in. And I mean, well, like what you guys are doing at Velocity in particular, right? Like I think that the amount of technology that is out there right now, it's, you know, A, how do you deploy it out? But then B, how do you manage it? How do you go through and make sure that it's all working properly? Because I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding that, like, you don't just have this all figured out because you're like, oh, this automation looks cool. That piece of technology looks cool. Hey, let's just do it. And then our business is going to be fixed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, don't you feel like there's so many buzzwords that are running around now when it comes to technology? We have this AI thing that sometimes I think we actually mean machine learning, but we like throw this AI all around. And when certain companies like came into the market 20, 15 years ago, it was all like kind of this sexy blue light and white backgrounds, and everything was like clean and sharp and organized and tidy. And that's not really how the trucking, transportation, logistics space looks when it comes to technology. It just has a little bit different feel. So what Velocity gets to do is we dive into all of those technologies that are available for either a facility or the fleet itself. And that fleet doesn't necessarily have to be Class 8 trucks. It can be a rental car fleet, for example. I mean, it can really be anything. golf cart fleet.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways that we get involved in technology. But what I've noticed over the last like several years is a lot of companies struggle just navigating the landscape of all of these technologies. Sometimes regulation forces us to get involved,
Mhm.
and that's all right. And we respond to that accordingly. But then there's other things that like regulation hasn't quite pushed, but it's the world we live in. For example, trying to defend oneself inside a courtroom after an accident, staged accident or otherwise, like there's the private enterprise of technologies and solutions are stepping up to address that for our industry.
Mhm. No, and that's the thing. Because I've had a lot of, crash I call them crash consultants, but I've had a lot of them on the show, and, the videos that they post out there, and I feel like, a lot of what you need your fleet to do these days is you need to, because unfortunately, trucks, like, are the opposite of how it's supposed to be in the legal system. They're guilty until proven innocent.
Right.
Like, and I don't agree with that at all, but you need to unfortunately put pieces of technology on your equipment to show that you weren't at fault because you brought up staged accidents. That's something that is still going on nonstop. And I've talked about the Warner case here that was highly publicized recently, how that came out and everything as well. And it's like it's an unfair circumstance for a lot of fleets and
Mhm.
trucking companies that are out there, but it's unfortunately a hand you've been dealt, and you need to do something here because otherwise that could, that decision to not put a piece of technology, i.e. inward, outward facing camera, whatever that looks like, that could cost you your business and or jail time.
Yeah, right. That's and taking it that extreme, like jail time. It's like we hear that and it's like, oh, wait a minute. Like this is more than just having to pick up the phone and make a phone call to our attorney system. Instead, it's like this could really have some damaging effects for someone's entire family and future.
Mhm.
I agree with you, and I'm frustrated, and I know a lot of people in the industry are frustrated that, the 53-foot logo that's cruising down the street is the one that ends up being the target. But the reality is, like, that's the way that the human behavior system is responding to some of these trucks on the road. So as a result, like we need to be better at the technology that we have the option to select, install, but then also maintain. And I
Yeah.
think that's like kind of the black hole behind technology is that, we get it installed, we get it set up, we start running. But once that fleet and that capacity grows, all of a sudden managing all of those resources is just really hard.
Mhm.
So there's things that we do at Velocity. We'll install it. We'll help consult around everything that's available. Sometimes that alone could be a full-time job, knowing
Yeah.
what's out there to resource. But then we'll also keep eyes on it. So if there's anything that's not reporting correctly or up to that company's standards, we can dispatch someone to go fix it. But someone doesn't necessarily immediately need Velocity. People can do their own technology audits.
Mhm.
And I have a form, happy to talk about that, happy to share it. But there's things that everyone can do before they even resource a company like Velocity to really get the most value out of their technology.
No, definitely. And from my perspective, I look, as a business owner myself, I look at it as like, how could this potentially disrupt my operations, right? Because like we need the revenue engine churning because like not everybody just has endless cash flow they can just burn while we figure this out, right? So it's like, how are you guys working with trucking companies, logistics companies, what, of any size, to deploy these new technologies to minimize disrupting day to day? Because I'm not going to sit here and say eliminate it because I don't know if there's ever going to be an elimination of disruptions when you're changing any technology platform out there.
Oh, so we've heard anecdotal stories all the time from company CEOs, C-suite, even drivers themselves uh, echo the sentiments where when a dash camera is not reporting, they're running down the road with a $2 million minimum liability.
Mhm.
So let me break that down a little bit more. If someone is out on the road with the assumption that the camera technology is working, recording, being uploaded to the cloud, doing everything that it's originally designed to do, and then something happens and they're in the courtroom and that video feed they find out isn't doing what they assumed it was doing, they know that they're like this conversation is starting out at $2 million.
Mhm.
That's scary. Like, and it's an industry that I have grown to love It's the most connected 3 million people that I know of. And I love that. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you have a background in this industry, like much longer than I have. And so when I see that there are systems or plaintiffs bars or someone that's like running after this industry that we have all grown to love and protect, like we need to find a better way to do it. So we offer a product called Velo Care. What it does is it runs in the background with all of the systems that someone has operating on their fleet. And if there's something that's not reporting, we'll dispatch a technician with a crash kit to go fix whatever that problem is wherever that truck is. So we
Mhm.
don't have to wait for that truck to necessarily come to home base. We can dispatch a technician and have it handled right there.
Yeah, and I think like what you brought up there, Beth, is very important in the sense of like you assume that everything's working out there, and to kind of paint a little bit of a picture. Back in the day, like when my dad was driving, for example, it was a paper log book, and maybe a few paper log books back in the day that he used. But today, knowing drivers today, and then knowing my godfather who drove back in the paper log days, and then in the e-log days, I mean, he was telling me, he's like, there's like 7 programs I have to activate. He might have been exaggerating it, but he's like, there's like 7 programs I have to activate before I can even do my pre-trip out there and stuff like that. And then again, you assume everything's working, but when you're out there, you're doing your pre and post trips, you're trying to, I don't know, drive safe down the road. You're not necessarily checking every little thing at every given moment out there. Like, is this working properly? And again, it's like, it's only a matter of time. The second you don't stop, double check, or have some sort of monitoring system out there, uh, it you're going to put yourself in a very tough position because I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge, but no judge or jury is going to accept, oh, I forgot to do that today and now somebody's dead as a
Yeah.
logical defense.
I'm with you. And there's like, so when I think about like providing the best customer experience to anyone that's either working with me personally or through Velocity, it's like dive in, before we even have like longer term conversations. It's like dive in, like start auditing every 20th camera that you have. See if it's really reporting. Dive into the subscriptions. That's complicated. And that's something that sometimes I'm like, how is it 2025 and these are still so complicated? But as a result, we've created a solution that manages all of the subscriptions so that a company will know like what's expiring, what's maybe a device that's gone out of service that no longer needs a subscription, what's been replaced, and so forth. But like dive into those subscriptions, make sure that the software is up to date. Review dash cam footage often, look at real-time reporting. These are things that companies can do independently. Like you don't need a Velocity
Mhm.
to do an internal technology audit, but just like we do preventative maintenance on the truck itself, it's probably about time to start planning for that around one's technology as well.
So, I mean, speaking of that, and like, on failures and stuff, what are some mistakes that you guys have identified that maybe some of your prospects or current customers had early on that are avoidable when it comes to rolling out new technology or like managing their current technology? Have you guys kind of come up with some pretty common things that you've seen and just you've been able to like find a couple of tweaks to help them avoid that?
Oh, great question. One of the funniest, like I think it's like kind of a simple thing that's easy to solve for, but it's inventory management.
Mhm.
So think about several different facilities. There's kind of one central place that all of the technology backup devices are being sent to, but they might not be needed for quite a while. And so by the time that camera is needed, let's just pick on camera technology. By the
Yeah.
time they're ready to install that camera technology on site, sometimes it goes missing or it just gets misplaced and not nefarious. It's just gone. And so one thing that we can help with is that inventory piece. Someone can pick up the phone and say, I need a camera out of our stock sent to this particular location. But it's like a really simple solution on the other side of it. But technology devices go missing all the time.
Mhm. No,
It,
yeah,
not
go ahead.
intentionally.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, right? Like, again, I just feel like there's so much assumption that goes on out there, and just kind of like having like, I used to not be a big systems person at all and like that checklist on stuff, but it's like the deeper and deeper I am into self-employment, systems and processes
Yeah.
are where the real value lies. And even if it
Mhm.
is just simple checks like that and running a simple inventory of those stuff. And, so like this makes me think a lot about like visibility and stuff like that of, like where is your product? But how are you guys working with people right now, with this like real-time tracking, stuff like that, real-time visibility? That is like the expectation that's out there. How are you working with them, your customers to like improve this?
So I think this is going to only grow over the next like couple months. I don't think this is like necessarily a 2030 kind of goal metric that we have this traceability.
Yeah.
I see that in the next like 36 months, we're going to have a tremendous requirement around tracking visibility. The customer is going to want to know, the shipper is going to want to know. You and me sitting down at dinner, we're going to know where that little chicken came from before it ended up on our plate. I think that all of these things are going to like really start to move through our society. We cut our velocity cut our teeth in the fleet space.
Mhm.
We now do a tremendous amount of our business in this inside the facility. So whether it's cold chain tracking and keeping up with regulations that are going to go into effect and helping companies design technology solutions that address those regulations, but also address what the consumer at the end of the day really wants to see. We're helping with that facility setup. We're helping with getting everything uh, kind of essentially like tracking, tracing, communicating, improving visibility from the fleet as it moves through the facility, as it goes to its final destination. If there's a solution that someone needs that isn't quite already put together out there, we'll help bolt that. And that's why I like talking about connection so much because we have
Yeah.
this interpersonal connection within our industry, but then we also can connect these different technologies to deliver whatever solution we need in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think, especially with cargo theft continuing to rise and a bunch of stuff continuing to increase out there, I think that we're gonna get to a point where visibility is going to come from like the second it's like order picked, because like they already have
Yeah.
inventory management systems that tell you exactly where it is and when it leaves the warehouse. But I think it's going to go a step even further. I mean, I just saw an article, I forget what company it was, but we were talking like $15 million worth of cargo that was stolen here, like over a specific time frame. And it's like, what preventative measures are going to be in place now to make sure that that never happens again? Because it's like, is it going to be cameras like on the forklifts showing it being loaded? There's going to be a requirement where there's a camera in the trailer. There's going to have to be an ELD connection from the truck into
Mhm.
the shipper or the receiver's TMS to show real-time visibility at any and all times out there. I think we're going to get to that point. Like I truly do. I think like, yes, you could argue that it could be extremely invasive. But at the end of the day, we're talking millions of dollars worth of freight that's getting stolen on I mean, a weekly basis might be an over exaggeration, but when we look at some of these theft rings that go on out there, and I've already put my opinion out there more times than not. I think 90% of the reason theft happens is it's happening inside of the organization who's shipping the product. It's just cash envelopes that are being passed
Mhm.
along about, hey, what trailer is going to have what product out there. But inevitably, we're going to get to a point where there is going to be extreme security measures that are going to be put into place for a lot of these goods that are continuing to get hit.
Yeah, don't you feel like there was this time that, perhaps I'm really exposing my age, which is fine, but it's like Fast and the Furious made this like
Oh my
really fun, like, let's talk about how like, fast cars and, Mini Coopers and so forth are going to like zip in and out of these trailers and offload all of these very expensive items. And that's what cargo theft is. And it's like, no, really, what cargo theft is today are hot dogs that are being consumed. And now all of a sudden, there's no way to track and trace that particular product because it's gone. It's
Yeah.
perishable. It's gone. So one of the things that I think we're going to see a lot of, like you said, is camera being employed everywhere. I think we're going to have card readers, we're going to have tags, things are going to be scanned a lot more for just the integrity of it moving across the supply chain. Even if it's not going to be vulnerable to any type of theft, we're still going to want to see kind of this entire continuum of that device or that particular item moving through the system. But like you said, I mean, cargo theft, $35 billion annual problem. Like, and those are numbers that are just so hard to even really recognize, but
Yeah.
it's not something that's flashy and glamorous. It's like you said, cash envelopes moving around. It's chicken wings that get consumed that no one can now go trace. I mean, it's probably, I would imagine it's probably a lot easier to go find some fancy car sitting somewhere than it is looking for packages of hot dogs that have been dispersed.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people are, I look at it in the sense of, and I learned this from cybersecurity conference I went to or I go to every single year, and they talk about that is like a lot like you'd think that my business is too small, my freight is too invaluable, no one's going to go after me because of that, and that's actually the opposite because
Mhm.
they were saying they're like it's easier to steal $1 from 100 people than it is to steal $100 from one person. Now, like amplify that into the millions or and stuff like that. But you see that, and that's what it is a lot of this freight that is stolen that's out there is already liquidated and gone by the
Mhm.
time they even realize the truck's gone or they're even able to locate that trailer. So it's like if you sit there and think that your small CPG or your shampoo or something like that is, oh, no one's going to want that. You're wrong. I look at it is the easier it is to liquidate that on the streets, the higher the probability that that stuff's going to get stolen.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, like, how probably convenient would it be if it was 8 Can-Ams that are stolen versus, some of these other, like, household items? And then I also think too that we're going to see a lot of regulation that gets involved in this
Mhm,
because right now it's kind of everyone just points a finger. It's like, okay, now that the truck and trailer is on the interstate, does this become a federal kind of a jurisdiction of that space? Is it the shipping agency? Is it the receiving side of it? Is it the trucking company that's involved in it? So it's also kind of going like unreported.
mhm,
I think that we're going to see regulation step up, but what inspires me always about regulation is the kind of the other side of that is then private enterprise steps up to find solutions. And so
mhm.
while there are times that I'm pro regulation, there are times that I'm anti regulation. But what I love about regulation, regardless, in that kind of continuum, is that private enterprise always gets involved. They always come up with something highly creative and innovative. Regulation might sometimes push the speed of that, but at the end of the day, we're going to end up with something far better than we could ever dream because this is a tremendous problem, and whoever cracks the code on this is going to really, really set the tone for the industry moving forward.
No, I agree. I think that that's why I'm such a fan of the free market at the end of the day is like private enterprises will always innovate and come up with something out there. But when that does happen and inevitably somebody comes to somebody like yourself, Beth, how do you ensure that the people who are on the front lines are actually using this technology out there, like in the day to day?
Well, we have some systems that we can tee up to have enhanced visibility to whatever technology is operating. And that doesn't necessarily only mean inside of the fleet. We can do that in the facility as well. Even if it's sensors that get bumped and moved, like we have a network of technicians that are nationwide, easy to source and get to the right location. We've now expanded into about 40 different countries and we have capacity globally. The nice thing as we move into a global economy is that the consistency that happens in the United States is the same consistency that can happen in France, for
Mhm.
example. And now, as companies themselves are growing, we also have the capacity to grow and help them. So we're continually monitoring the devices. Again, if it's part of one of our products that we sell, at velocity, but we can continually monitor those. We work with the technology providers, which is also something that I think is really a differentiator to the velocity brand is while we have end customers that are deploying and utilizing that technology, we're also sitting side by side, shoulder to shoulder, breaking bread together with the technology companies themselves. And so as we hear kind of rumblings about the market is missing on this, and this, as far as a feature or benefit to the technology itself, we have partners that we can go share that with who can then design that into their next iterations of their hardware. But having those relationships with our technology partners is really, really critical to how we can best address our customers. And then
Mhm.
kind of taking that an additional step further, once we're sitting there with the technology provider and the customer and talking about the framework for how this technology can be deployed over the next several years, that's where companies start to really set themselves apart too. I've said before, kind of tongue in cheek, like Uber yourself before your Kodak. And what I mean by that is like dive in now, not even knowing what the future landscape is going to be, because none of us do. But we do know that we need to start doing something today around technology that's going to tee us up for a better experience tomorrow.
Mhm. Are you guys out there working with your clients on the selection process of technology that they might implement in there? Or are you guys more after the fact, like, hey, I already chose these. I need these all to talk. Can you guys help us through with that?
Yeah, we kind of do the continuum. My favorite part is on that consultative approach that starts at
Yeah.
the beginning where someone's like, here's the problem I want to solve. Come back in a week with some solutions. Like
Mhm.
that's what really gets me excited.
No, and I think that's one of those things, and especially right now, like, there is a bazillion AI and technology companies that are inside of the transportation space, and, it is one of those, like, where do you start? How do you know which ones you wanna talk to? How do you know that you're talking to somebody that has a fully deployable and developed product that's out there, or are they still in the design and R&D phase inside of there, but they have, like, a really good sales rep who's selling them on the fact that it's ready to go right now. And, and then all of a sudden you sign a contract and now I'm going to the extreme with it. But I feel like that's one thing that I think is understated in value out there is working with a trusted provider like yourself and your company, Beth, to help walk your clients through like these guys are like fully ready to go. These guys are still 3 to 6 months out to where you're not pigeonholing yourself. Because again, I think like that is what causes a lot of apprehensiveness for technology inside of this space is it disrupts their operations. Now you're costing me money as
Mhm.
like I'm paying you and your shit doesn't work. And now you're messing up my entire operations and stuff like that. So I feel like it's extremely important to work with somebody like this. And especially if you've never done this before, or you know what, you just need an outside opinion from a trusted resource because you can have all the experience in the world in this. I'm sure you probably talk with more IT, CTOs, chief technology
Mhm.
officers, than not in this about like, hey, am I crazy here for thinking this? What are your guys' thoughts?
Oh, 100%. And Velocity's been around for 30 years.
Yeah.
With that, we have touched every technology that's in a fleet or that can go into a facility. So with that 30 years, we bring that experience and then there's teams. I mean, behind me, team of another 18 different account executives behind
Yeah.
us. There's project managers, there's experts, there's account managers that we have on our team who sit there and talk about the last time they've deployed that particular technology. And so if someone's thinking about pilots, we can expedite some of that time to launch because we've already been through it and we've already done it. Those are things that I think like really, really help lift someone's ROI. We have some solutions that we're able to provide because our company ownership understands that this is a thin margin industry, especially right now. And so we've done some things called like instant ROI programs where that first invoice happens at the end of the deployment. And so someone's not paying while the install is taking place, but
Yeah.
we'll install nights, weekends, holidays if needed so that the operation can keep rolling. One of the things that we kind of joke about is the fact that we run after assets that never stop. And so as a result, we have to have a business model that's highly adaptive that can show up and address that vehicle, that asset, wherever it is, and sometimes it's not in ideal locations because that's when the technology fails.
Yeah. Beth, I love it. Thank you so much for your time today. How does anybody reach out to you or Velocity to find out more about what you guys have going on?
Probably the easiest way to connect with me is through LinkedIn, just Beth Young on LinkedIn. And then Velocity, to note, is spelled with an I at the end, but we have velocity.com. There's Velocity on LinkedIn. But anyone will be happy to address anyone's problems that they have an interest in, like diving into their technology and their technology forecast.
Perfect. Beth, thank you so much for your time. If you guys can't find Beth or Velocity out there, please hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling really ambitious after this one, which you should be, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you saw value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang.